I probably don't need to tell you that the humble sedan is a dying breed. So it's a good thing we're not driving a humble sedan today. This is the new Bentley Flying Spur, the latest luxury tour from a company that's been making luxury touring cars for about 100 years now. It says so right there on the door. But while customer preferences for sedans and SUVs continue to shift, the very definition of the word luxury is changing too. What used to be all about plush carpets and luxe leathers is now more about things like convenience and reducing stress and enjoying the experience without worrying about the details. And so with all that in mind, let's take a look at how this latest sedan from a traditional manufacturer can stand up in a world of modern luxury. What is modern luxury? I spent some time, probably too much time, reading aspirational mission statements and explainers put together by marketing companies, trendy hotels, and even investment firms, looking for words and phrases that attempt to define this new era of luxury. A few key terms kept popping up again and again. The first is quiet confidence, and I gotta say, the way this Flying Spur has been spec'd, it fits that classification to a T. Though the overall design of the car is far from subtle, especially those outrageously faceted headlights up front and the powerfully creased fenders at the rear, this particular Flying Spur has been rather significantly toned down. How? Well, beyond the beautiful but subtle shade called Verdant that's been applied here, this car also features the so-called Blackline Specification. You can probably guess what that means. What would normally be chrome has been blacked out, creating a much more subtle ride than the Flying Spur would normally be. And that's how I prefer to be, rolling incognito rather than turning heads, and yes, that means I opted to keep that beautiful Flying B logo tucked away for much of the time. But the notion of quiet confidence goes well beyond that, because this car is literally quiet, very quiet, and that's despite making 626 horsepower from a massive 6-liter W12 engine. I've seriously driven EVs that make more noise than this thing, and that's despite my test car rolling on snow tires. All that just leaves me wondering why Bentley doesn't hurry up and make an EV already, but that's a topic for another video. For now, the Flying Spur is absolutely oozing in quiet confidence, so you can tick that box. The next term describing modern luxury is more of a concept, and that was a focus on the experience. Basically, the notion of being present and free of distractions. And that's another area where this Bentley does things incredibly well because the driving experience is incredibly polished and completely unfettered. It starts, of course, with amazing materials and surfaces everywhere. You can't get in this thing without wanting to reach out and touch everything. And everything is really nice to touch. Everything from the dashboard, these amazing 3D door cards with leather that's kind of pierced and wrapped around a crazy diamond pattern surface. We've got these kind of dragon scale knurled surfaces on a lot of the controls. Everything looks and feels incredibly nice to use. It also continues through the infotainment system, which is actually really surprisingly comprehensive. We've got everything in here that you'd want: modern navigation system, media connectivity. You've got full control over everything from the interior lighting. You can pick any color that you like. All sorts of control in here, but when it all gets to be too much, when you just want it to go away, push a little button and it hides itself behind a dashboard. Now we've got some nice, simple, classic analog gauges, although I think the lap timer on the right is maybe a little bit optimistic. That continues through to even the driving modes. We've got 4 driving modes here, including a custom one, so you can choose your chosen suspension settings if you want to, but ultimately there's a B mode, which is kind of the default, and frankly, that's all you really need. Just put it in B and forget about it. In any of those driving modes, the car is surprisingly easy to control, despite being as huge as it is. This thing is about 17.5 feet long. It's about as long as a Ford F-150, but you never know it behind the wheel. It's nice and easy to control. The steering is nice and light. It is a little bit slow, but that's keeping in character here. The brake pedal has a really long throw. Despite those calipers being incredibly massive and powerful, you can come smoothly to a stop and creep forward if you like. And when it comes to the all-important driving assistance package, Bentley's actually pretty comprehensive here as well. We've got a full adaptive cruise system that will bring the car to a complete stop and resume it again in traffic, plus an adaptive lane keeping system that will keep you centered in lane, meaning you've got all the niceties and all the technology that you want for keeping things safe, as well as making things nice to drive. The car will even park itself, and trust me, parking something this big is a bit of a challenge. Yes, you can probably do it quicker yourself, but all you need to do is push a button down here. The car will automatically scan for parking spots and back itself in, parallel park, do whatever you need it to do. Nice and easy. But when the road starts to turn and you want to actually enjoy your driving and not just cruise along in traffic, the Flying Spur is surprisingly engaging. It is actually remarkably nimble, and a large part of that comes down to the new rear steering system that Bentley has added in. Basically, the wheels turn opposite to the front wheels to make this thing pivot and virtually shorten the wheelbase, and it works surprisingly well. And then there's the power. As I said before, 626 horsepower, but it's really the torque that is remarkable about this thing. You put your foot down, and it just goes and goes and goes and goes until you run out of room, or run out of road. It is remarkably quick for something that is, again, absolutely massive. But really, I think this car is better enjoyed when you just slow down a little bit, again, put it in Bentley mode, and let itself drive along. And there's always the eternal debate in a car like this of whether it's better to drive or be driven. And to get a better look at that, let's hop in the back seat. Another trend in modern luxury is feeling good, and while it's hard to call that a trend because everybody likes feeling good, certainly the back seat of a Bentley Flying Spur is a very good place to feel good indeed. At the touch of a button, I can trigger some very nice and very comprehensive massaging seats. I've also got full heating and cooling back here, just as good as up front, full climate controls as well, and I can even push this front seat out of the way. And from the back seat, I can experience another trend in modern luxury, which is connectedness. And this is an extremely connected place because I have not one, not two, but three separate tablets built into the car here, one of which sits nicely nestled inside the center console. But at a touch of a button, it comes right out, and I can now use it and sit back here and control everything from the climate control to the media. I can queue up any playlist that I want to. I can look at navigation and set new destinations for my driver if I'm so lucky to have one. I can even retract the Flying Bee up front if I want to. Interestingly, all these tablets are running Android, and yet this car doesn't support Android Auto. It does, though, at least have Apple CarPlay, but only up front. And the final aspect of modern luxury is personalization. I said before that I love how the dark green and the black trim create a car that is beautiful but subtle. But if subtlety isn't your bag, Bentley will paint this thing just about any color you want. And if you really want to turn heads, go with the chrome brightwork. That will definitely get you noticed. That's my take on the Bentley Flying Spur, but we want to know what you think. Is this enough to stem the tide of the SUVs? And do you like the subtle look, or would you go with the polished chrome? Let us know in comments. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you over at theroadshow.com for the full review.